All righty then, it's time for Krackin Canuckleheads and a lot to get to on this episode on a Monday evening, because essentially outside of the Devils and the Sabres, who started the season over the weekend in Prague, Czech Republic, or Czechia, the season starts Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. Pacific, and it features the Seattle Kraken hosting the St. Louis Blues, part of a triple header for national television purposes. That'll be it for Tuesday, the three NHL games. The Canucks open things up on Wednesday against the Calgary Flames. But there's roster news, more so on the Vancouver side, big time, than on the Seattle side, where there are really no surprises. First of all, the news with the injured players, testicular cancer for Dakota Joshua, and we're hearing now that it's going to be 3 or 4 weeks. That's from the Sportsnet and the TSN reporters. 3 to 4 weeks for Dakota Joshua in terms of his recovery, going through that process. And then Thatcher Demko, similar time frame. He will not be the starting netminder on opening night. That's not a surprise. And I'm telling you, it's just no, I just don't know. The Artur Shelovs and Kevin Lankinen show could go on for much longer than folks might expect, which might work out just fine. I mean, hell, I picked them. Already told you the Canucks are going to win the Stanley Cup. So we'll see what happens. Both those players, by the way, Joshua and Demko, have been placed on season opening injured reserve. They're non-roster injured players, and they have been replaced on the roster, which, by the way, is a full complement of 23 people, 13 forwards, 8 defensemen, and those 2 goaltenders whose names I mentioned. A couple of players were sent to Abbotsford. That would be Arshdeep Bains, the forward who had a couple of nice power play goals in the preseason against the Edmonton Oilers, won in 2 different games. The Surrey native, Eric Branston, who's just acquired from Colorado in a little even money swap for Tucker Pullman's contract. Pullman not to play hockey again with the concussions. He's been out for a couple of years now. And goalie Yuri Patera also sent down to Abbotsford. So that's the news there. In terms of the guys that are on this roster, by the way, we didn't mention we've been busy talking to broadcasters and getting previews around the Pacific Division. But on Sunday, Niels Höglander signed a 3-year contract extension and got $3 million per season. So good on you for Hoagie or Hoggy. His nickname's changed 3 or 4 times in the last 3 or 4 years. Anyway, up front, the usual suspects, but Atu Ratu made the roster. Nils Aman is also on the roster. Kiefer Sherwood, who he pointed out the other day, is a favorite of head coach Rick Tocchet. He's there, of course. And Spronger from the Netherlands, Daniel Sprong. We'll see what he does. See if he decides to play the 200-foot game. On the blue line, no new names, nothing unexpected there. That's it for the Canucks. The Seattle Kraken, as I've mentioned a number of times, they're uptight against the cap and are starting this whole party shorthanded. They have 21 people on their roster, which is 12 forwards, 7D, 2 goalies in this case. So they're just an injury or 2 away from a whole heap of trouble. But they'll give it a whirl as they open at 1:30 on Tuesday against the St. Louis Blues. Speaking of swirling around the Pacific Division, getting previews and updates on the closest competition for both the Canucks and the Kraken. Today, what a pleasure to speak with a longtime associate, a friend in hockey for many, many years, Dan Rusanowsky, who last November was awarded the Foster Hewitt Award. He's the only play-by-play man on the radio that the Sharks have ever had. And he's pretty damn excited. You know, usually Dan's answers are they're succinct and they're somewhat compact and, boom, boom, he spells things out. This time, we just chatted a little bit ago. He goes on and on. He is jacked. He really just lots of information. I think three long answers with everything you need to know about this rebuilding team that is now a very exciting rebuild with Macklin Celebrini from North Vancouver, the first overall pick. And was we were joking afterwards. What's in the water in North Vancouver? We got Bedard and Celebrini in back-to-back years, and there's another kid coming up that's 2 years away, I think, from being a first overall potentially, something like that. Anyway, crazy, and he's loving the roster. Goaltending situation has improved, and legitimate excitement um, in San Jose. We'll talk about the coaching change, the personnel, and some really, really interesting personal history for Dan back in his early days. Kind of a near-death experience for him 24 years ago. So, a lot to catch up on. So, big news today, and this interview with our friend Dan. And just like that, the man, the myth, the legend, Dan Rusanowsky. How the hell are you?
Simmer, I'm great. It's almost hockey season time, so I can't wait for the drop of the first puck and get this baby going.
Get this baby going. By the way, I was thinking about this earlier. What is your hockey nickname? So, in other words, you're walking around outside the dressing room. What are they hitting you with? Is it just Danny Boy, or what do you?
I got a handle, a couple of handles. They call me that. They call me Ruzy. They call me Ruzo. It depends on the era of the Sharks' history where I get that.
Okay, so it is Ruzy or Ruzo. It's not.
Pretty much.
It's not ski.
No, or Danster or anything like that.
Yeah. Well, it's got to be a Y or an O or an ER, but that's pretty good. Um,
It's hockey.
I watched you receive your Foster Hewitt Award last November. Tremendous stuff. You're the latest winner of the honor. When you reflect back on that now, you're starting a new season. You're like, yeah, here we go.
It's
Congratulations.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. It was such an amazing experience. The Hall of Fame does such an incredible job, and what a first class luncheon. My dad, who just turned 90 last week, is really happy to have been there. And
Nice.
unfortunately, my mom couldn't make it. We lost her last Christmas, but she was very aware of what was going on. And to me, that's what it's all about, right? My wife, my family, my sister was able to come. My wife was there and got to be with all those hockey legends that came. I was so honored that people like Joe Bowen and Sam Rosen and Peter Marr and so many other people were at that luncheon, not to mention good old Simmer. So I think that to me it was just the greatest honor of my career. Honestly, I couldn't think of anything better.
It's funny when you mention that. We go back a long way, and I actually remember sitting next to you during a preseason game in Portland, Oregon, and it was the Minnesota Wild's first ever exhibition game as a franchise, and you had just survived a car accident, right? Like
Right, that was a long time ago.
you've overcome some adversity. That was 20 almost 25 years ago.
Well, yeah. In fact, it'll be, well. Let's see. It's 24 years ago this November. So it was the November of 2000. It was the Saturday after Thanksgiving. We had a home game against the New Jersey Devils, and I had been to the pregame skate, and it was just an unusual day because I had gone to a grand opening of a restaurant of somebody that I knew, and I was representing the team, and I figured, what the heck, I'll just go there for lunch after the skate. And on my way home, I ended up, getting hit and missing 27 games that particular time. And that really was a low point, obviously. But it was, I look at it this way. Number one, it gave me a greater appreciation of the life that I have,
Yeah.
but also it gave me a greater appreciation of the home that I have because the people in San Jose were just so incredible to me. All the medical personnel, first of all, but even all the fans. It's just been so wonderful the way they've reacted to treating me and my wife and my family so very respectfully. It's really that's the, I guess you could say, the silver lining out of what was a dark cloud there for a little while. But those 27 games and the one game I had to miss when it came time for the Foster Hewitt Award, are the only Sharks games I haven't been at, regular season or playoffs. So
Wow.
I think that's a record that'll stand for a while.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic stuff. And sorry to hear about your mom, by the way.
Yeah, she lived to be 91 and was a tremendous influence on a lot of people. And we celebrated that certainly and continue to do so. She taught, how about this? She had 3 pregnancies in 2 years. My sister was born in January. I was born in December of the same year. And then my younger sister was born in February, 13 months later.
Damn.
And not only did she do that, but also taught 7th and 8th grade for over 30 years, which is
Wow.
not exactly the easiest grade to teach. So
No.
she's vying for sainthood as we speak.
Damn. Keep busy. Get it done. Take care of business. Like let's 3 of them.
Yep. Yeah,
Wow.
and there were two more later. So I come from a family of 5.
Oh my God. All right. Well, then you're happy to be hanging around a hockey team, the brotherhood that it is. Let's start with well, first of all, David Quinn. I don't want to throw him under the bus, but you always hear it's not what you know, it's who you know. But it also might just be where you went to school because he gets that Rangers opportunity with Drury. He gets the San Jose opportunity with Greer. Doesn't work out so well. Tell us about the new guy, David Warsofsky.
Ryan
Or
Warsofsky
sorry,
is,
Ryan. Sorry.
yeah, it's David's brother. Ryan
Yeah.
Warsofsky is a very talented coach. He's the youngest coach in the National Hockey League, 36 years of age. In fact, Marc-Edouard Vlasic was joking he's older than his head coach is, which is kind of interesting to see. But he's somebody that has a fire underneath him. He's very intense when it comes to talking about the game. He's very thoughtful, very modern in that way, studies the game, spends a lot of time talking with, at last 2 seasons, his fellow assistants, but currently now the assistant coaches he's brought in. And I think that if you look at his record, he seems to find a way to win. I'll give you an example. He was in Chicago with the Wolves in 2022. And coaching in the American Hockey League is not easy. Let's face it, Simmer. You have to deal with the fact that many times when you're at your pivotal point in your year and when you want to start doing your best, all of a sudden the big club recalls a couple of your guys, and they're always your best guys. And so then you have to adjust. Well, he's managed to do that with 2 organizations. One is an assistant coach, and the one I mentioned in Chicago in 22, where he won the Calder Cup. And that's something to really respect him for. And I'm seeing signs of all of those things that got him to that point here in this training camp. The first day of practice, I had guys coming off the ice, people like Luke Cunnin and Mikhail Granlund and players like that said this was one of the hardest practices I've ever had. And then they followed that up with, and I loved it. That's what Mario Ferraro first said. Luke Cunnin said it. They loved the fact that they were being pushed hard, and they knew that they had been through something really tough, really the last couple of years, but last season, a rock bottom year, in my opinion, for the franchise. So they were really happy with that. They were totally bought in as to what Ryan wanted to do. He's made a couple little tweaks to the way that he wants his guys to play, but nothing, it's hockey. So, obviously these guys know what to do. But I think that we saw a sign for the future, not necessarily a guarantee for anything, in the last preseason game just a couple of days ago. And that was when they were down by a couple of goals in Vegas, and there's a minute to play in the game. They're down by 1, pulls the goaltender, and who does he throw out there? He throws out all the kids. He said, threw them on all the kids. He said, let's see what you can do. And wouldn't you know it, Ethan Cardwell scores the game-winning goal with 12 seconds left in the game. Daniil Gushin, who looks like he's earned a spot on the team, had 5 assists in that game.
Wow.
And just by a little background in that, the Sharks' all-time record for most assists in a game is 4. And that's happened 22 times. And the last guy to do it was Erik Karlsson back in 2023. But the guy before that was Tomas Hertl, who was on the ice and had 3 assists for Vegas against San Jose. That was the first time he'd ever faced the Sharks in any kind of a game whatsoever. But that's what we've seen. And so we're starting to see reward for a couple of years of work, because Goosh has been with the team with the AHL for a couple of years. Cardwell led that team in goals last year with 23. And a lot of people don't remember this, but his grandfather, Steve Cardwell, actually played the NHL for the Pittsburgh Penguins. And his father played at Western Michigan. Wouldn't you know it? One of the games in preseason I did this year was with Jamal Mayers, and Jamal's going to be on with me for about 20 games this year. And he played hockey in college at Western Michigan with Cardwell's dad. So we've got
Wow.
lots of family things going back and forth. But Cardwell's grandfather, Steve, actually, one of his last years was in minor pro, and it was in San Francisco. So he has many memories of playing pro hockey in the Bay Area way back in the 1970s. So these kids are starting to get some rewards for all of their work. And that's beyond, of course, all of the attention that's being placed on Macklin, Celebrini, and Will Smith, among others that are coming into the organization. Shakir Muhammadulin is probably another one. But those are kind of the glitzier names. But even these other names of these other young guys have been really working hard. And it's nice to see that they were able to gather that together and then get the win. And I know that Ryan, after the game, the coach of the Sharks, gave a really nice speech about what this does to set up what's coming next. And that's when you ramp everything up. You go from preseason level of intensity to regular season intensity. And it's just going to be a joy to watch this happen again, because I was here 20 years ago, the last time this happened, when the Sharks had Patrick Marleau and Brad Stewart and Scott Hannon, all #1 draft picks, Marco Sturm, another one. And Dean Lombardi at the time, the general manager, surrounded those young prospects with veterans like Scott Thornton and Ronnie Sutter and Murray Craven and players like that. And they taught these kids how to be pros and how to win. And I'm seeing history repeat itself in that sense, because you've got Granlund here. You got Tyler Toffoli now signed to a contract. Cody Ceci played in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final last year. Jake Wallman comes in from Detroit, where they're kind of on the verge of getting back to where they need to be. So he knows what that's like. And I'm just really enthused about the possibilities of what this team's going to do. We don't know where they're going to win, how many games they're going to win, that is, but we do know that what we've seen is an intensity. They're going to be hard to play against, and they're going to be really entertaining for the fan base.
What are you picking up from Macklin Celebrini's mental makeup? Because that's so very important. He's 18 years old as of June. So where's this kid at?
He's ahead of just about any 18-year-old I've ever seen. That would include some of the greats that came in through this organization. And, Marleau was 17 when they drafted him, and he turned 18 that summer. The interesting thing about Celebrini is that he's got a real pedigree of top athlete mentorship over the course of his life, because his dad, Rick Celebrini, is the vice president of player performance for the Golden State Warriors. Oh, yeah. And so, he had Draymond Green going to his junior games in Chicago when the Warriors were in town. But the point is that he's been around these professionals who really show him how important it is to work on all of these little details. Not the same sport, but the same idea of what it means to be a great pro. And of course, the Warriors have had a rather good run the last 10, 15 years as a great basketball team. So I think he's had that. I've noticed him, he's usually the first guy out on the ice in practice. He was that way this morning. And the other thing is that he just has an eagerness and a love to do all the extra work. So he's miles ahead of a lot of other young guys his age. Let's not forget that he was the youngest player in college hockey last year, and he won the equivalent of the Heisman Trophy, the Hobie Baker Award, which is the same thing for college hockey. Yeah. And, besting out a guy who actually had more points than he did, Will Smith, who's now his teammate, before that, an arch rival at Boston College. So I think his mental makeup is one of his great strengths. He's very competitive. And I've even seen in the prospect tournament down in Los Angeles and in the preseason action limited that he's had, he looks like a guy who can take control of a game. And he, even if his team is down, he says, all right, time to get this thing under control. And he starts doing some spectacular things. Now he's going to have his ups and downs, as will Will Smith. I think Will's been a little different in that he's gotten a little bit better every time he's been on the ice. Celebrini is started off pretty high and is going to continue to get better. But Will had a little bit more of an adjustment, I think, in his first couple of pro games. But he's on the right track, too. Very skilled, very, very brilliant hockey mind. I think that's Will Smith's great strength. And here's the interesting story about these two guys. They're the kind of the key to the next core group for the Sharks, obviously. You had Taves and Kane, you have Crosby and Malkin. And here in San Jose with that next group, the hope obviously is that it's Celebrini and Smith to be that next group of two super forwards who really kind of stir the drink here. And we've also got an interesting advantage in San Jose in that Macklin Celebrini is going to, if you know, first overall in the draft, is going to live at Joe Thornton's house, first overall.
Ah.
And Will Smith, fourth overall, but kind of the second guy, is going to live with Patrick Marleau's family.
Okay.
And and the latest reports are that both Celebrini and Smith are spending a lot of time with Patrick Marleau's sons, who are a little bit older. They're teenagers. They play hockey, and so over the course of the summer, they've gotten to know each other. They're over the house playing video games, and I think Will Smith is moving in with the Marleaus officially this week. He's been in the hotel, and Celebrini's the same at the Thorntons' place. But they're going to learn everything there is to know about being a great player and what it takes from those guys personally. And we've always had a tradition of that here. When Marleau was 18 years old, he lived with Kelly Rudy at his house for the first year. Marc-Edouard Vlasic also had a billet family when he played here at age 19. And so, I like that tradition for those younger guys because there's so much pressure on a young hockey players. And, think about it. Let's put the two of us in this situation. We're now 18 years old. We'll go back in time. And we just signed a contract for $1 million and we're on our own. I mean, I think I'd be dead right now. So it really is a big responsibility. But both of these guys are so mature. And, it's not just Celebrini. As I said, you shouldn't forget about Will Smith. They're both going to develop at different rates. They're going to be like stock market charts, as will the fortunes of the team. It'll ticker up sometimes, and sometimes it'll fall back. There'll be some short selling and everything else. But I think ultimately what we're seeing, to get back to what you originally asked, are really good signs that these guys are going to be outstanding pro hockey players.
Very nice. Yeah, and I thought it was super cool that Thornton and Marleau, by the way, same draft, 97, ended up together in San Jose. It was kind of neat, the 1-2 guys. Were you at the game, by the way, in Boise in 97 when they played an exhibition game against the LA Kings?
No, we weren't doing all the games back then. I was not
Yeah,
at that game. I was getting phone calls at the end of each period to find out what was going on.
Yeah. Daryl Sutter against Larry Robinson. Those were the coaches at the time.
Yeah, that was some time.
Do we what's our confidence level? What's our thoughts on the Blackwood slash Vanacek, the combo? Is apparently, I think that's what you're looking at, right?
What we're looking at, and of course, Askarov or Askarov, depending on how we want to pronounce his name, is going to be the goaltender of the future. He's only 22 years old. He's had an injury in training camp that set him back a bit. So, my guess is if he's not on the IR to start the year, and I haven't quite looked at the first roster, it just came out a little while ago, but he'll probably be with the CUDA. In fact, I think he is with the CUDA. So that's okay, because the difference, and this is the thing, people say, well, he was in Nashville and he said if he was going to go to Milwaukee, he wanted to be traded. So he comes here. Well, there are a couple of differences. Number one, he doesn't have to pack up from Nashville and go to Milwaukee. He just walks down the hall to TechSU Arena and goes to the San Jose Barracuda locker room. So his living situation is much more, shall we say, stable in that sense. And he's got Yevgeny Nabokov to work with when he's with the CUDA. And this is a guy that he reveres. Most goaltenders should. I mean, that Nabby's in the top 25 all time of wins in the history of the NHL. And so he's somebody that really understands the goaltending profession and can teach it. Then when he's with the big club, he's got Thomas Spear, who's an outstanding goalie coach as well. But so flipping it back around now to the two guys that are veterans that are here, they're both very outstanding. Well, they're very, very capable National Hockey League goaltenders. I think they've both been beset by injuries in their career. Blackwood had a bit of a tweak near the end of the last season, and who could blame him? I mean, his first game, he had to make 50 saves. That was a tough night for him, but it was like that for much of the year. And I think that the same was true, just the other night. Vanacek played his first full 60-minute game, and it ended up going all the way to a shootout. He made over 40 saves. He was one of the best players on the ice. And the last time that Blackwood was in for a full game, he was one of the best players on the ice, according to Ryan Warsofsky. So I think that the goaltending position is stable, and it's much deeper now, too, because you've got Askarov and you've got Georgi Romanov, who had some impressive games. He's really good down low. He's more of a development guy. And they've got Aaron Dell signed to an AHL contract. So they've got people available a little bit more depth than they've had in seasons past, and I think it's going to be better. And so the key for me in the goaltending position for both Vanacek and for Mackenzie Blackwood, who I would guess will probably be this opening night starter, is that number one, they're gonna probably platoon some time, but number two, they just have to stay healthy.
Yeah. I've got some other questions. You've covered a boatload of ground. I got a couple other things, but they can wait because there are more questions that, we'll get a couple months into the season. I would talk about the young youth in the D core and the depth of the D core, but inappropriate now just because, as you just mentioned, you hit rock bottom, 5 years without a playoff spot, and this team is rebuilding and putting things together rather quickly and have made some changes. So we'll circle back around for some of that and see how things are going in December. That would be fantastic.
Sure.
In the meantime, always a pleasure. And you brought up a lot of memories for me as you were going through some of that stuff when you're talking just heaps of stuff. Always fantastic because you hit on a lot of cool things. Have a great season. I know you will, and enjoy this Sharks resurgence. It's going to be fun to watch.
I think the theme is the future is teal, and we're really excited about it, Simmer. I think it's we're seeing the dawn of a new era, really, with these young kids coming in. They've got good veteran people to help them, and I'm really excited about it because I've lived through this before. It's a while ago now, but this next trip is going to be a lot of fun. And then that's when the Sharks will get back to where they belong, which is in the playoffs and challenging for a Stanley Cup. And who knows? We'll see how it goes this year. I'm looking forward to it.
Very nice. Thank you very much, Dan. I'm excited to see you jacked up.
I am, and great to be with you. We'll see you soon.
There he is, Dan Rusanowsky, talking about the San Jose Sharks. You think he's excited? You think he's excited about this rebuild? I would say so. If you want to catch up on some of the other teams, you're wondering about the LA Kings. We talked to Dennis Bernstein. Oh gosh, seems like maybe a week and a half ago. Filled it all in. We are going to be speaking with one of their broadcasters here shortly. Sharks, we've covered. Flames, we talked to Derek Wills. Oilers, we spoke to Jack Michaels. We talked to Maddie McConnell about the Utah Hockey Club. So we'll continue to go around. Of course, you just said the Sharks. So we'll keep bumping around the division, get you all caught up on everybody so you know what the hell's going on with the closest rivals and opponents for both the Kraken and the Canucks. So stay tuned for that. That's it for now. Lots of news as we get ready for the start of the season and lots of entertainment as well. See you on the next Krackin Canuckleheads. And don't forget to check out the Simmer Puck channel at YouTube for all the videos. Later.